Whoa.
Perfect. Awesome. Um, One last edition. Okay, great. So today we're fortunate enough to have Becky Holm with us. Becky Holm is the director at Seven Stones Chatfield Botanical Garden Cemetery. She was born and raised in Littleton, Colorado, and is privileged to serve over a decade as an officer in the United States Air Force. She also has a background spanning 14 years as an IT systems implementation project manager. Becky's calling for the past decade at Seven Stones has been creating and tending to a sacred garden, allowing families to heal and employees to flourish. Beyond her professional pursuits, Becky cherishes family moments, and delights in the game of golf, spending many hours of enjoyment out in nature. We're really excited to have you today, Becky.
Oh,
Um,
thank you so much. I'm
yeah,
honored to be here. I'm
yeah,
going to share my screen real quick.
perfect. Yeah, and just a quick introduction. Today's presentation is all about making your wishes known through memorial planning and alternative burial options. Becky's going to present traditional and alternative burial options, green burials, and other ways to leave a memorial for your loved ones to visit in honor of your legacy. So with that, I'll hand it over to Becky.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lauren. As Lauren said, I've been running Seven Stones Botanical Garden Cemetery for the last decade, and I've been truly blessed with the caretaking of that space, which is actually the first new cemetery built in Douglas County, Colorado in over 100 years. Um, I'm very excited to be able to be here today to share what I've learned over the past decade while caring for our families who've been navigating their end of life wishes. One truth that I am regularly reminded of is that every single person is unique, a one of a kind gift to those who know and love them. From the very first day that they came into this life until the final day that they pass from this life. And this truth makes it very hard for most of us to talk or think about end of life. And I've got to figure out how to move slides just a minute. Okay, there we go. And we're not alone. A lot of people feel like that. Based on the latest results from Choice Mutual's annual funeral preference survey, there's roughly a 40-40 split between people who are comfortable with discussing end of life planning and those who are not comfortable discussing it. And this leaves around 20% of respondents who are neutral and in the middle. And these survey results, they pretty much align very closely with my experience at Seven Stones. I would say the majority of people really don't want to talk about it. I have served thousands of families, and I just know exactly how difficult these conversations are. One super helpful resource that I have shared with my families and share every time I get a chance to speak to people is, and I want to share before we dive into the non-traditional burial options, is a resource called The Talk of a Lifetime. This website was started years ago. It has absolutely wonderful resources to help families thoughtfully navigate these important conversations. As you can see from the slide, they have some question cards, they have a checklist, they have intro guide. The question cards are just amazing. They allow you to just draw a card over the dinner at the dinner table, pick a topic, throw it out, and then you can start talking about that card of the questions that are on that card. So it's easier to kind of bite off of these conversations a little bit at a time rather than all in one very long setting. I also wanted to touch really briefly on legal considerations surrounding final disposition. I know we have quite a few people on this call, and not all of them are from Colorado, but some from Utah and Wyoming as well. So I did a little bit of research prior to this presentation so that I could provide you guys with some general guidelines for all three states and what non-traditional methods are permitted in each of them. Basically, in a nutshell, all three states allow for the common types of cremation methods via cremation, via a crematorium, which is also known as a retort, or via alkaline hydrolysis, which is known as water cremation. as well as they allow for the traditional burials and green and natural burials. One sort of new option that's come onto the table, onto the forefront in the last, I'd say, decade, is called natural reduction, which is also known as human composting or terramation. It is allowed in only a few states. Colorado is actually one of them. And interestingly, Washington State was the first to allow this method. And there are companies in Washington that offer this service to people in all 50 states, providing the family coordinates the transportation of their loved one to one of their natural reduction facilities in Washington State. And that is not exactly cheap, just to let you know. But you can be moved from state to state and be buried in any state that you want to. And I realize for some people on this call that cremation isn't really an option because of religious beliefs. But I did want to point out that one key thing to remember about the act of cremation, it is actually considered the final disposition, just like a traditional or a green burial in the ground. So anything artistically done with the cremains after they have been provided to the legal representative is typically not regulated by any state or federal law. There are, however, some laws and regulations pertaining to the cremains entering waterways, oceans, or into the air. So you're going to want to make sure if you choose any of those methods, you're going to want to make sure that you're following local, state, and federal laws if you choose one of those. And on the next slide, I have quite a few of those options to talk about as far as cremation. We'll talk cremation and then we'll talk alternative burial options. So on this slide, I think I've got just about all of the options out there that people would choose for their cremation placements. There's a lot of creative ways here listed outside of the customary placing of cremains into a cremation garden or traditional cemetery. So one of the things you're going to want to do, if any of these like draw your interest, a really good way is to reach out to a local funeral director in your region and ask them if they know of anyone who provides these methods. You can also do a lot of research online. So I'm just going to kind of go down this list at a real high level. Alkaline hydrolysis and aquamation, it's considered water cremation. So you're not going into a crematorium. You're going into sort of a tube, and I have a picture of that on the next page that has alkaline and water and heat. And what that does is it removes all of the soft tissue off from your bones and leaves just your bones remaining. And then they get processed exactly the same way as cremation. The normal cremains that you're used to get processed after they come out of the retort. Another method is the pyre method, which is only in Crestone, Colorado. In all of the United States, it is the only place that's authorized to do pyre method. And it's fire cremation. I have a couple of pictures of what that looks like on the next slide. There's scattering from airplanes. You can send yourself into space now. You can be turned into fireworks, shot out of a cannon or a shotgun, placed in a coral reef or scattered at sea, scattered at national or state parks. If you are doing any of those methods, all of those have some sort of local, state, or federal laws or regulations tied to them. So you're going to want to look into those and make sure that you're following the rules. We live in Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado, have some of the most gorgeous state and national parks in them. And so I know for a fact that you just have to go to the state's website, the state parks website, or the national parks website. And they have forms to fill out if you want to be scattered in one of those locations. And then there's a new thing that sort of came onto the forefront about 10 years ago. It's being placed under a tree in a living urn. And I'll explain in a few slides how we do it a little bit differently at Seven Stones. But the thought process is that you would have the cremains placed in this container that has a proprietary mix added to it so that you're taking the acidity out of the cremains before you're putting them into the ground. And then the Living Urn Company will actually send you a root ball tree that you can place over and plant over that living urn with the cremains. And the thought process is that your cremains will feed a tree for as long as that tree is living. Quite a few options that are absolutely not covered by local, state, or federal laws or regulations are the artistic options with cremains. There's almost a limitless end of things that you can do with cremains after they've been provided to you. Many of our families will put a little bit of the cremains in a piece of jewelry so that they can wear them around their neck, or they'll have their cremains turned into a diamond, potentially blown glass, parting stones, painted into rocks. You can add the cremains to paint, and then you can paint rocks or paint paintings with it, or pottery. Those are just some of the ways in which you can incorporate cremains into artistic options to be passed down for generations and enjoyed by your loved ones. On this slide, it shows a picture on the right-hand top corner of the alkaline hydrolysis machine. And in the middle and the bottom right corner are pictures of the pyre burning, which is very interesting and can be very beautiful for families that choose that option. Top left-hand corner is a picture of ocean scattering, where typically once they've put the cremains into the ocean, then they put a wreath on top of those cremains, and you have just a beautiful memory of that. And then the bottom left-hand corner is a cremation company called Cremation Air, and they have different planes that they will take up and drop cremains out of the air. On this slide, it shows some items of jewelry that you can make. Some parting stones are in the middle. That top right-hand corner is how the cremains look when they go down and become part of a coral reef. On the left-hand side, there's a rocket showing some cremains being sent into outer space. You can either have your cremains go into orbit, and there's even a company now that's saying that they can send the cremains all the way to Mars. Not quite sure how that's going to work, but that's what they say. And then the bottom left-hand corner is turning cremains into fireworks for a fireworks display. Go out in one last big bang. Here at Seven Stones, I was telling you about the tree option. We sort of decided that it wasn't in the best interest of a perpetual care cemetery to do one set of cremains tied to one tree, because when those trees die, then what do you do with the cremains that have grown into the root ball of that tree? So we have come up with a really unique option called our sundial maple or our sundial spruce, where we place cremains at 12 positions around the tree, at far enough away from the trunk of 4 to 5 feet off from the trunk of each tree, depending upon the varietal of the tree, so that they're outside of that root ball area. And then their names are on a shared monument. It's called a cenotaph, which is just off to the side of the tree. And that allows us the flexibility that when those trees die, because they will eventually, that we can remove that tree and put another tree right in the middle of those cremains without disturbing those cremains. So that's our option for putting cremains under a tree. There's not quite as many options for non-traditional burials as non-traditional cremation options. And as you can see from this list over here on the left, all of these are regulated by local, state, and or federal laws. And I've just put a few little references under each of the main options so that if you want to dive a little bit more in detail, these would be great places to go look up online and get more information about it. So the Green Burial Council is the leading authority on all things green burial. So they're the ones who I pretty much learned everything I needed to know about green burial from when I first came to Seven Stones. And if you're interested in learning more, they're just a great resource to check them out. One thing to note on this next one with green burial with a mushroom pod or a coffin, you'll notice that I don't have mushroom suit on there. So mushroom suits are not even made anymore. They were made popular in 2014, but the company that made them has gone out of business. And so a couple of companies have come into the scene to fill that gap with mushroom pods or mushroom coffins. Passages International, which they're out of New Mexico, and Earth Ritual are both very reputable companies to be able to purchase their mushroom pods or coffins. And as I mentioned before, locally in Colorado, only the Natural Funeral offers the body composting here. Wyoming doesn't offer body composting. It's not allowed there yet, and it's not allowed in Utah yet either. So Colorado, if that is something that you're interested in, natural reduction, also known as body composting, is available in Colorado through the one company called Natural Funeral, or it's available in the state of Washington by sending your body to the state of Washington to be composted there. Another unique and non-traditional option is donating your body to science or the medical community. Both Science Care and TomorrowLink are companies I've worked with or had my families work with. They're very well known, and they provide the cremains back to their families to be placed wherever you want them to be placed after the person has served their purpose, their body has served their purpose for the science that was being done or medical research that was being done. One other thing, you can donate to help solve crimes. I found this to be super interesting. They call them body farms. Not exactly the best name, but that's what they're called. There's only 8 of them in all of the United States. If you search online, you can actually see all the states where body farms are located. We happen to have one here in Colorado at Colorado Mesa University. So it's kind of close to Utah. And just really quick to touch on the tree pod burial concept that was made somewhat popular, I'd say 10 or 15 years ago, when some social media posts were put online and everybody thought it was a really great thing. Unfortunately, it is not actually allowed in the United States, in any state here in the United States. So that's not really an option here. But you can do a green burial very close and underneath a tree. That would get you sort of close to that same concept, just not a straight on burial pod directly underneath a tree. On this picture here that I'm showing, this is a picture of the Natural Funeral, which I mentioned. They call their natural reduction terramation. And this is a picture of them with their equipment that they use to do the body composting. And I mentioned the Green Burial Council. These next couple of slides are going to show some different cemetery options that are certified by the Green Burial Council. On this particular slide, this shows some pictures of Florence, Colorado, which is where the natural burial grounds are that are certified by the Green Burial Council. And you can see some beautiful services that they've had and see how very open it is. There's no monument or headstone pointing out where anybody has been buried. And then here is a follow-up picture of that same location, the natural burial grounds in Florence, showing how families get very involved by either digging the space and lowering the casket into the ground, as well as adorning this space with natural plants and grasses to help with the decomposition to move quickly. And then some of the hybrid cemeteries. Green Burial Council has designated Roselawn up in Fort Collins, Colorado, as a certified hybrid cemetery. And what that means is that they have set aside some land that is solely dedicated to furthering the Green Burial Council's processes for green burial. So it's completely separated out from the rest of the cemetery, and only Green Burial Council processes can be used in that space. One thing to note, there's a lot of cemeteries out there that offer green burial and traditional burial. Seven Stones is one of them. And we actually made a business decision early on to not be certified by Green Burial Council, because we will offer a green burial right next to a traditional burial, right next to cremation placements. And so we learned fairly quickly that not everybody wants to go into the ground the exact same way with the same disposition. And we did not want to have families separated from each other just because of their disposition choice. So this allows them to be in the same space. They can still have green processes done in their little space, just not in that whole section of the gardens. And I would guess, based on a little bit of research that I did, in Utah and Wyoming, I would think that they would have, most of their cemeteries would have a very similar philosophy. You may not find them offering green burial or advertising green burial, but you can definitely give them a call and ask and see how do they do green burial and what processes do they follow when they do that. In Utah, I did find one hybrid cemetery listed on the Green Burial Council's website, and it's called Memorial Mortuaries and Cemeteries. Some pictures of from their website of how that looks. And at Seven Stones, as I mentioned before, we're not green burial certified, but we do offer beautiful green burials out in our gardens. This shows you the creativity that people employ when they are being creative with their casket adornment. And then this particular one was just very, very beautiful, super patriotic person and family. And they wanted all the flowers to be red, white, and blue, and have their pretty little red Porsche in the backdrop of the burial being taken place. All right, moving to non-traditional monuments and memorial options. I could go on for days, definitely an unlimited amount of slides, talking about ways people have designed lasting and unique monuments, as well as celebration of life events. The most important thing to remember is, how do you want to be remembered? And then craft your monument and your celebration of life around what is really important to you and your family. And I would just say the sky is the limit on how creative you can get with your monument and your memorials. Over here on this slide, I just listed a few of them. So monuments, we've got, people have donated benches in parks with a little memorial message on them, that you can design a one-of-a-kind glass monument from scratch with whatever colors you want. Engrave and place a boulder a natural, just a straight on natural boulder engraved directly into it, you can really, really get creative. And then with some of the memorials and celebrations of life, they can be small or large, family and friend picnics, really, really tiny, intimate gatherings where you decide you're just going to share stories around a fire pit. Some families have organized golf tournaments, charity runs, bike rides, marathons, hunts, you name it. Like whatever that person loved to do, I find a lot of my families will build the memorial around that love and maybe some sort of activity as well. And then some of our families have created these beautiful art projects around a table just while sharing stories. So, not sitting in rows and just listening to one person talk, but being much more interactive and creative with the memorial event. One time at Seven Stones, we had a gentleman. Unfortunately, he had passed away from a powered paragliding incident. He was well known for never wearing shoes. Not never, never, never. He never had shoes on, not even in winter time frame. And so part of the memorial was the family insisted that everybody kick off their shoes at the entrance to the gardens and then just be barefoot the whole entire time. So that was really fun and really beautiful tribute to him where everybody could join in and be barefoot for the day. So on this slide is just some of pictures of some unique monuments. As I mentioned before, a bench can be put in a park. You can see that on the left corner. Some beautiful glass monuments, some boulders being engraved directly. And then down in Sedalia, Colorado, we have an interesting called Bear Canyon Cemetery, I believe. And they have very, very unique and old-fashioned in this old-fashioned cemetery. As you can see that musical instrument there in the background as a headstone. And then just here's some pictures of some large and small picnic memorials, art-focused or sports-focused events that were done. And I mentioned that celebration of life that required everyone to kick off their shoes. That's down sort of in the middle of the picture there. These were all events that we had tears, we had laughter, we had joy, and there was hope by the time everybody left, and lots of camaraderie. Oh, and sometimes sports teams focused events. Like I had a Seattle Seahawks event one time where 200 people showed up in their Seattle Seahawks favorites. You can see the one here around the fire pit. They were Broncos fans. All right, now that you have an idea of the different types of non-traditional cremation and burial options, making decisions in advance about a final resting place, as well as memorialization and celebration of life, are some of the most compassionate gifts you can give to your family. They're hard. They're really, really hard to face and do it ahead of time, but it is the best gift you can give to your loved ones. For each of the families that I've served with ALS, and also just in general at my cemetery, the ones that have chosen to pre-plan and be part of the decision-making process with their loved one had a much, much simpler time of figuring things out right after they passed. The loved ones knew exactly where they were going. The person who was passing knew exactly where they were going. And sometimes, like in our cemetery, we have events all throughout the year. So those loved ones can come and make memories before someone is even passed or placed there. But families have told me they are absolutely grateful to have those decisions made in advance and not weighing on their hearts and their minds. And on this slide, I highlight some options with just some really key decisions that must be made, preferably prior to one's passing. So if you'll look here at cremation or burial or donation, that's sort of the number one thing you need to decide. How do you want to, what is your final disposition? And then from there, things can kind of snowball as far as the next set of decisions that need to be made. What is my final resting place? What does my monument look like? Do I even want to be in a cemetery or not? Do I even want a headstone or not? Some of the more traditional or natural settings, or do I want to be more traditional, maybe potentially laid to rest where my ancestors are? And then the very unique and more cutting edge or leading edge options, like being sent into outer space, scattered from an airplane, placed in the ocean, made into jewelry. All those things can be decided once you've decided cremation, burial, or donation. And then after that, the service or the memorial or the celebration of life, whatever you want to call it, can be determined from there. You can just give simple direction to your family and say, hey, I only want family there. Or please don't have an open casket. Or please don't make it sad. I want everyone to be barefoot. So those kinds of things are really important for your family to know in advance. Um, the families that don't have those decisions made ahead of time, or they've never talked to their loved one before they passed, us in the funeral industry taking care of them, we get to see the anguish that they go through. Like, is this what mom would have wanted? Is this what dad would have wanted? Oh my gosh, I don't know. I never talked to him about this. Like, those things are very, very important. And I know it's hard to do it in advance, but boy, it saves a lot of heartache and questioning and second guessing yourself as the loved one who is left here to grieve. So, what are the next steps? Give the gift of a lifetime and have the talk of a lifetime. Be brave, start the conversation, and use that information that you learn from these conversations to help craft the perfect one of a kind celebration of life and monument just for you. And just remember, there are no rules. If someone tries to tell you there's rules about what kind of headstone you can have, or what kind of monument, or what kind of celebration of life, it's not true. That's no right or wrong way to do it. This navigating this is truly a journey, and all you have to be true to is really what's in your heart and what's in your loved ones' hearts. And with that, I will open it up to any questions.
Thanks so much, Becky. That was super enlightening and super interesting to hear all of the different kinds of burial options. That's very fascinating.
Welcome. It's my pleasure. And I'm sure I didn't list all of them.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. If anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and just ask, or you're welcome also to put it in the chat as well.
Yeah, I do have a question on the aquamation.
Yeah.
Can you be buried after that? Just the bones?
I don't know the answer to that question. You might
Okay.
be able to be, but I've never heard of anyone doing that.
What do they normally do?
What they normally do is they process your bones into a machine that turns them into ashes. So
Oh,
they
gotcha.
pulverize them just the same way as if you came out of the crematorium.
Crematory.
Yeah.
Okay. I was curious on that aspect.
Yeah. What the aquamation does and what that water cremation does is it's really just removing all the soft tissue. So if you want to be buried, probably green burial would be better. It just takes a little longer for all that soft tissue to be removed from your bones
Right.
than it does in aquamation.
Okay. Trying to think.
What did you say about botanical
And Becky, you had mentioned with the tree pod option that it's not legal in the US.
Mhm.
Is there a reasoning and or is there any like efforts to legalize that in the US?
I honestly don't know that. My guess is that it's a similar reason, which why we at Seven Stones are not doing one set of cremains for one tree. And then it would also, when that tree dies, it would be wrapped completely around that pod of of the casket, and you also would have to bury someone up and down versus this way.
Huh.
So at least that's what I have seen online with that burial tree pod concept.
Okay.
And where are Seven Stones located?
Seven Stones is in Colorado. We're in Douglas County. And if you're familiar with where Chatfield Reservoir is,
Oh, sure.
we are very close to Chatfield Reservoir, like halfway between Sterling Ranch and Roxborough.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Are you in Colorado, Kurt?
Yep, Colorado Springs.
Oh, okay.
Used to live down that area in Highlands Ranch.
Oh, yeah, that's where I live. That's where I'm talking to you from right now.
Mhm.
Is there any botanical gardens at Seven Stones or flower gardens or anything?
Yes, we kind of have a tagline. We call ourselves a botanical garden cemetery because our focus is very much on the natural environments. We have roses, we have Rebeckias, we have all sorts of beautiful plants. If you go to our website, you can look at our visual history, and it'll kind of show you what we're like. And there's some videos on there as well that give you an idea of what the gardens look like.
Excellent.
Okay, I have one more question. If you're being
Yeah.
cremated, can you be put over your flower gardens? Is that allowed?
No, we do not do above ground placement of cremains at our cemetery. We have a couple of reasons for that. One is we like to know exactly where we're putting cremains and know that they're going to stay there. We don't want migration happening. It's very, very windy where we're at, so they would end up all over the place. The other thing is a lot of people don't know that cremains are very alkaline. They have a lot of alkaline in them, or a lot of
Right.
acidity. Sorry, a lot of acidity. And so if you scatter cremains just straight up on like grass, you'll kill it. So only plants that really, really like acidity could you place cremains on, and you wouldn't do damage to them.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any final questions from anyone else in the group?
I think I'm going to have to research it. There's a lot of information here.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Please feel free to call me if you ever have any questions. I love talking to
Okay.
people, and I'm happy to point you in the right direction if there was something that you're interested in that I didn't cover on this presentation.
Excellent. I'll digest all this and probably give you a call.
All right.
And for those of you, this presentation is being recorded, and we will have it on our website. So Kurt and everybody else, you can kind of go back there and reference it if you need to, because I really believe that today we have started the conversation with some of you, if you haven't already started it with your loved ones. So, you know, the conversation isn't just a one-time, got to get her all done. You know,
Right.
let's open up the conversation and, you know, dip into it. So thank you, Becky.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the information today, Becky. And yeah, as Mary mentioned, we'll have it up on our website here in the coming week or so.
Excellent.
All right.
Great.
Sounds good. Happy to be here with all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. Thanks, everyone.
You're
Have a great
welcome. Have a
weekend.
beautiful day.
Yeah.